Us now is Jonathan Tobin, editor-in-chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. The significance of this meeting between President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, what is your observation and assessment and expectation here as the two meet face-to-face?
Well, certainly the symbolism is important. The fact that this is the first foreign meeting with a foreign leader for Trump says a lot about how much he prizes the U.S.-Israel alliance. That's important. But frankly, more important is the substance that they'll be talking about. The ceasefire deal with Hamas was, as much as anything, the result of the will of Donald Trump to get it done. He wanted the fighting to stop in time for his inauguration. He wanted some hostages out because he had threatened the Middle East with all hell being unleashed if it didn't happen. But the fact is, now he must deal with the consequences of that, the good optics for his inauguration, because there is very little chance that Hamas is going to keep its word in terms of the second and third phases of the deal. And the end game of this is also important. Is Trump really willing to go along in order to preserve this ceasefire that he prized so highly? Is he willing to see Hamas remain in power in Gaza? Because that's the logical consequence of this very lopsided deal that favors Hamas. Israel is going to be releasing, by the end of it, up to 1,000 terrorist murderers in exchange for we don't know how many hostages that are still alive. And so President Trump has to decide, is he going to back Israel as it inevitably will seek to remove Hamas from power in Gaza, to wipe them away again, and to clean up, finish the job that it's been doing since the war began on October 7th. And also, he has to decide what's going to be a joint strategy on Iran, which is the head of the snake that has driven this war, not only with Hamas in Gaza, but with Hezbollah in Lebanon and with the Houthis in Yemen, which is as much a threat to the United States and international shipping as it is to Israel.
Yeah, these exchange prisoners, what's to say that they don't, envelop into what remains of Hamas and then further bolster it? The other thing, Jonathan, that President Trump wants to do is clean out Gaza and move its population to neighboring countries. Both Jordan and Egypt have rejected that proposal. What do you think happens on that front?
It's not clear what happens, but I think it needs to be stated that Trump's proposal is both rational and humanitarian. There's no precedent for a war where the refugees, the people who've been displaced by the war, are told to stay where they were and to suffer rather than to receive some aid and to be able to escape the devastation in a neighboring country. Now, of course, the rules are always different for the Palestinian Arabs. In 1948, when Israel was created, there was an exchange of population. 700,000 Arabs fled out of what is now Israel as a result of that war, because they didn't want to peacefully accept a partition with an Arab state next to a Jewish state. And 800,000 Jews were forced to flee their homes in the Arab and Muslim world. But at that time, there were 65 million refugees in the world after World War II and the partition of India and other refugee problems around the world. In response to this, the United Nations created two refugee agencies. One to deal specifically with the Palestinians, and the other to deal with everybody else, the High Commission for Refugees. The High Commission, despite its faults, did its job. All those refugees were eventually resettled elsewhere or given new homes. There are no refugees left from the 1940s from elsewhere. But the Palestinians who were served by UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Works Agency, were told to stay in place. UNRWA decided its job was not to resettle those refugees, but rather to perpetuate the war against Israel. And that's what's happened. And what Trump wants to do is to break this cycle of dependence and this cycle of war by allowing these people the option of leaving Gaza, where they live under Hamas tyranny, where they are the victims of a war that Hamas and, frankly, other Palestinian groups want. They think their only purpose for Palestinian civilians is to kill, so as to be killed, so as to create bad optics against Israel. Trump wants to change that. Now, Jordan and Egypt don't want any part of the Palestinians. The Arab League says they're against this. But Trump has the leverage to, with U.S. aid, to force these countries to allow these people the option to leave. He should be supported by Congress and the American people in this purpose. He has Israel's support on this. It's the rational humanitarian thing to do.
Jonathan Tobin, the historical perspective, much appreciated. Thanks as always for stopping by.
Thank you.